I'm curious from your perspective, what is going on in our world right now?
The Akashic Record Keepers often talk about the fact that we have been, again, for many years, foundation building, right? Digging up all the old buried garbage, bringing up the old heavy energy, the old patterns, so that we can see them and release them. We get stuck in them when they're invisible to us. So we're right on this beautiful precipice. I truly believe that 2026 is going to catapult us forward. I really believe the vibration of the planet is high enough and will continue to rise as she awakens, but that it will really make a very positive impact on humanity. We'll start to see the world in a different way. We'll start to live more fully in their hearts and eventually into the deeper unconditional love where we're really going towards awakening.
There are moments when a conversation feels less like learning something new and more like remembering something ancient. Talking with Lisa Barnett felt exactly like that. Years ago, Lisa was raising 3 very young children, including twins, and the Akashic Record Keepers told her it was time to write and teach, and she genuinely thought they had the wrong person. Lisa is now a leading teacher of the Akashic Records, helping people access the deeper intelligence of their soul across lifetimes and timelines. She's written multiple books and teaches thousands how to access the wisdom for themselves. In this episode, you'll learn how accessing your soul's galactic wisdom can help you feel less lost, more guided, and deeply at home in your life. I'm your host, David Trotter. Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast. Lisa, it's great to be with you today. How are you doing?
Great. I am thrilled to be here with you, David. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Before we dive into your own personal journey of awakening and connecting with the Akashic Records, I'm curious from your perspective, what is going on in our world right now? I know you can connect with so much information that I'm curious your perspective on everything that's unfolding.
Absolutely. So, the Akashic Record Keepers often talk about the fact that we have been, again, for many years, foundation building, right? Kind of digging that big hole, digging up all the old buried garbage, honestly. I wish I was saying treasures, but really clearing and releasing so much of it, but bringing it up, even if you were building literally a physical building, you dredge it up and then you might go through it and say, what's valuable, what's not. So humanity has really been doing that very intensely for the last 5 years. And this last year also of 2025 has been very much in alignment with that completion. And so what they're always reminding us is that we're bringing up the old heavy energy, the old patterns, so that we can see them and release them. Right? We get stuck in them when they're invisible to us, when when we're unaware of the patterns and the stories that we've lived in, of course, for hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of years. So we're right on this beautiful precipice. I truly believe that 2026 is going to catapult us forward. So I'm thrilled.
That's great. It feels like you've got a lot of hope.
Absolutely. I really believe the vibration of the planet is high enough and will continue to rise as she awakens, but that it will really make a very positive impact on humanity. That a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but will raise their consciousness. We'll start to see the world in a different way. We'll start to live more fully in their hearts and really be in the compassion and eventually into the deeper unconditional love where we're really going towards awakening. And so the first steps are really opening our hearts and starting to care about other people around us. And I believe that's going to happen to so many and will make a huge difference in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm curious about your own journey of awakening, and I'd love to start kind of in your family life, your upbringing. Did you
Mm.
have some sort of spirituality or consciousness experience as a child, or did that come for you later?
Well, my parents were agnostic. So they were from different religions that were both a little bit of a mess. And so neither of them were believers. And so I was left to my, kind of on my own in that sort of way. But for me, the interesting thing was when I was only about 3 years old, I realized I was in my 3-year-old child memory trapped in a body. And I start to tell my mother that I wanted to go home. And so
What did she
my
say?
poor mom said, "But honey, you are home." you know, she didn't know what to say, right? You're home, And I remember my brother telling me, probably when I was about 8, that my parents thought there was maybe something a little wrong with me. But I was just, more aware, more conscious than the average person. And so, I really carried that with me and started studying spirituality when I was about 14. So I remember my father had Baba Ram Dass's Be Here Now on the coffee table. And I picked that up and was like, wow, there's books like this out there. And it actually started my journey of studying. And so I just started reading. I just totally was self-taught. I started reading the books that were coming out. And this was, the late 60s, the early 70s. And there was a lot of very interesting materials.
Were
John,
your parents bringing that into the home? Like, was your
no,
dad interested in it?
I
You
was
pursued it.
yeah, I was pursuing everything. My parents, again, kind of agnostic, but conscious. Lovely people. And my mother was an elementary school teacher, and my dad was an architect, very artistic, and so they were very kind of conscious and aware of, supporting their children. And but I really did study spirituality all the way through high school. I remember having just amazing epiphanies after reading all these things, but I could remember past lives where I was a healer, and so I felt that calling very strongly. And then I had some extreme kind of trauma. My 2 soul sisters, my very best friends, both died when we were teenagers. And so I thought, well, there goes our plan, whatever that was. They've left me. So forget it. I'm not doing it. Whatever it was, I'm not going there. But I did study philosophy at university. I went on into a corporate world because, at that point I was a little over spirituality after having my 2, soul sisters pass on.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a couple of years to come back around, but I did, because of course the Akashic Record keepers were not going to be quiet, and my soul was not going to be quiet. And so, my soul and the record keepers were finding ways to contact me.
Wow. And so at what point down the line did you really start to go, okay, I'm going to acquaint myself, dive back into spirituality? How did that come up?
So I had worked in advertising for, about 10, 15 years, which is a bit of a high paced, intense kind of work. And it was a little wild back there in the 70s and 80s, have to say, but I got really bad chronic fatigue. And again, still being, not a very mainstream person, I went to an acupuncturist for help, because what I found was the regular, doctors I'd spoken to had no idea what chronic fatigue was. So anyway, I was blessed to find an amazing acupuncturist who, interestingly, after about a year of working with me, said, I can help you heal your body, but not your soul. You really need to find out what your soul is trying to tell you. And so she sent me to a friend of hers who was really kind of a phenomenal psychic channel. And the woman kind of looked at me and said, you're a healer. Like, Like, why are you here? You're a healer. You should be being a healer. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot. Right in those 15 years after the death of my friends, and then just burying myself in life and work and kind of the craziness, like I say, of the 70s and 80s, I forgot.
Hmm.
And that was just the trigger I needed. And I literally started studying energy healing again, and studied for many, many years until I started having different experiences. And so, um, along the way, I had a cute little healing center, and I'd be doing energy healing for clients. And occasionally, you know how when the energies just come together and kind of can rise up together, I would get this kind of phenomenal, big, booming voice and all of this expansive information, right? Like, past, present, future, all possibilities. And I think, wow, that was amazing. But
Yeah.
it would come and go, and I didn't know who it was or what it was. Because again, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, people were not talking about the Akashic Records. It was not a thing on
Mhm.
most people's radars.
Mhm.
So it took a few years until I finally was like, who are you? What are you? And why are you talking to me? So
My goodness. And so at what point did you put words to that, articulate like this is I'm tapping into the Akasha, the record keepers are coming. Like, how did you develop that language?
it was very much kind of the whole energy and awareness that again kind of hit me in a moment. So the very interesting thing was that the woman I studied energy healing with for years talked about the Akashic Records. Now, again, very unusual in that world, but she would say, after you do an energy healing and you clear all that old energy out and you make a space, then it's important you fill that space with the person's highest Akashic energy and wisdom. So you go up to the gates of the Akashic Records, right? This is the recording of their soul, and there's these gates, and you're not allowed to go in. But go up and ask the record keepers to fill them up. And so I would do that every time I do a healing, and I kind of get that image, and I'd feel like I was standing in front of a wrought iron gate and marble stairs and a beautiful building, and there would be a record keeper standing on the steps, and I would kind of feel them almost like pouring that appropriate energy right down into the crown of my
Mhm.
client. So it would be like I'd see water, or sometimes it would be a symbol, kind of the energy kind of coming down into their body, and I'd say thank you, and that was that. And so I was like, oh wow, okay, I've been talking to them for years, not knowing they could ever answer, that they could ever speak back. So when I said, who is this big booming voice? And they said, we are the Akashic record keepers. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think we were allowed in. I didn't know I could talk to you, right? I was told. So they were actually, I could hear them very very well. It was very clairaudient, and the big booming voice went away. That was their attempt to really get my attention. But then
Mhm.
it just starts to come in as that
Mhm.
typical clairaudient, a little bit more of a subtle voice in your
Mhm.
head. But I started asking them tons of questions, like, how come I was told that we couldn't talk to you? And they explained that during the Dark Ages, right around 1000 AD, that they pulled the vibration of the Akasha away from Earth. They said humanity was misusing their easy access into these higher realms. And so they pulled the energy away. And because it was, of course, pulled away out of sight, out of mind, we forgot about it. And so for the last 1,000 years, very few people had that ability. So of course, the mystics, right? The beautiful, divine, high light beings and light workers who are here in forms in priestesses and priests and healers and clairvoyants, and would often find the records, but it was, I believe, really rarely taught about.
Mm-hmm.
Even Edgar Casey found his way into the Akashic field through a hypnotic sleeping trance.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Question for you, real quick. For anybody who happens to be listening who does not know what the Akashic records are, you can kind of pick up on it in terms of what you're, saying. But would you mind just defining what does Akashic records mean, and who are the Akashic record keepers?
yes, absolutely. So, the Akashic record is the recording of your soul's journey throughout all time space continuum. So, if you imagine that at one point you individuate from source, we actually individuate usually like with a little group. This becomes your soul family. So you're kind of born in a little basket of souls, all brand new baby souls, and you kind of decide what you want to do, maybe where you want to go, what galaxy, what world, what dimensional universe you want to travel to. And off you tend to go as a group, and you start really your individuated soul path. And every soul has a recording. So I like to imagine it as a big library. And your record keepers are actually the librarians that are keeping your records for you. So when we start to think about it that way, now, of course, it's not physical, it's not on earth, it's not actually even energetically held in your field, in your higher self, or anywhere in this world. We do have information that we bring to earth, and our higher self holds that. We sometimes have what I call a past life backpack that has a bunch of past lives. We imagine if you were packing up to come to earth and you stuck all your clothes or your past lives that you wanted to access in a backpack. So we sometimes have access to some of the lives or some of the information. But the interesting thing is the Akashic record is actually part of the quantum field. It is energetically part of source. And so it is in that highest of quantum vibrations. And because it is actually held in this field, we can, with learning and training and raising our vibrations, actually transform some of our records for our highest good.
Mm-hmm. Record keepers, are there, 3 record keepers and they take shifts, every 8 hours? Does everybody have their own record keeper? Like, help me understand that.
So I get that there's about a dozen. Each soul has about a dozen record keepers. And the interesting thing is they're of a different, say, level. So say you have your beginning record keepers. So here's the funny story the record keepers told me many years ago. They said, if you imagine that some souls, right, you've individuated from source, you're hanging out, trying to decide with your soul group, where do we go? What do we do? So you go strolling down the street and you bump into this humongous library. Maybe it's a square block, and you go, well, let's go in. Maybe we can learn something. We can understand something if we go into this big library. And say you go in and you love the information, you're reading books, you say, let's stay for a while. And they put you to work. And so those are, say, your beginning record keepers. And so they actually are the ones who often help us with the more mundane, everyday type of information. So if you opened your Akashic records and said, can you tell me what types of food are in the highest and best interest of me in this body, in this time-space continuum to eat? Are there things I'm allergic to or that would benefit me that I'm unaware of? those record keepers, kind of the newer record keepers, are more connected into some of these sorts of energies. So those beings of light, I always kind of say, are the first level, and then say you stayed, and maybe they would move you up, to a higher level of librarian, and these are the teachers, and these beings of light often help us with, again, a lot of our life circumstances, some of our emotional pain, our traumas, our soul contracts, our quandaries and our questions, right? Should I take that job? Is this person really, do I have a soul contract with them? Is this the person that I'm to marry? And so again, very this life, but a little more complicated levels and realms. And then we go into the Akashic masters, and they tend to hold more of that higher picture of your not only this life but lifetime. So we can start to look more at what lifetimes are supporting this life, what other lives were there similar, say, gifts that you wanted to use that we can still reclaim, what past life, maybe trauma or karmic patterns are we to work on. So the Akashic masters are the ones who start to help us with these bigger questions, these more spiritual questions. Mm-hmm. And then the highest level is the Akashic lords. And I would say the only time the lords speak to me is when they want me to write another book. So they tend to not be the ones who show up around the daily kind of questions. For me, they show up because part of my purpose is to help bring the Akashic Records back to humanity. And so they will say, it's time to write another book. And I'll literally say, what are we writing about? And they'll tell me. And so I've written obviously 4 books now, all about the Akashic Records, all channeled from the Akashic Lords.
Wow.
And so, yeah, different energy, different. I realize they're the bigger booming kind of voice that I noticed in the beginning that were trying to get me on task and do what I had come to do and stop goofing around.
So one of the things that I come with a preconception in our conversation is that the individuals who can talk to the Akashic Records, those who can access the Akashic Records, those who give Akashic Record readings are super special spiritual people. Like the average person, like I can't talk to my Akashic Record keeper because I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So is that true? Can anybody talk to Akashic Record keepers, or is it only people who have had certain training? Like, help me understand that.
So, what the Akashic Record keepers say is that it is everyone's birthright to have access to their Akashic Record. Now, that's of course different than doing readings or healings or, starting a school or some of the other aspects. So, but it is very important. And so when the record keeper started to talk to me and said, please help us re-anchor the Akashic energy back on Earth because we pulled it away. Now we need humans in bodies to help us anchor it. And part of what that meant was we need people who can access it and talk about it, right? And bring it down energetically into the physical body and then start sharing it with humanity. So I remember when I first started doing this, very few people had ever heard about the Akashic Records. And if they had, it was very, very vague. And often people would say things like, didn't Edgar Casey access the records, right? So it was a slow 10 years in a way. So
how long have you been providing Akashic Record readings and teaching others how to access the records?
So I've been in the records myself over 30 years. I started
You've been in the
school.
record industry. I think I like how you said, I've been in the record industry for like 30 years. It's like, wow.
Different record industry,
Right, right, right.
but I started probably 20 or so years ago. I kind of am dating myself when I start to go back. But yeah, about 20 or so years ago, 25 years ago, the record keeper said it's time to re-anchor the energy.
Hmm.
I did that. I did readings for a long time. Then they said, we want you to start a school. And again, I kind of said, that's crazy. I'm busy here. At that point, I had 3 toddlers. And so I'm like, I think you've got the wrong woman. I've got 3 babies and I'm busy. And so, they were like, no, we don't have the wrong person. You just, it's just that timing,
Figure it
divine
out.
timing thing.
Yeah.
So I just said yes. I said, okay, I'll keep doing readings. I'll start talking about it. I'll start teaching a few people. And again, literally, classes would be, 3, 4, 5 people.
And this would be pre-internet where you're just doing this locally, I would assume. Is this in the Bay Area?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would speak at the New Living Expo. I would speak at bookstores. So I was like a East West bookstore. There was a great bookstore here in Marin, and so I would do those kinds of things as regular. I would go speak at the local bookstore every month, and sometimes you could get on a good radio show, like when I got on Coast to Coast with George Nuri. That was a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But literally, I would go find places, to talk to little groups of people, and little psychic fairs, and that's literally what I did for a long time.
Yeah.
But it built it up really over the years, and it was kind of perfect for me because again, I was raising a family. So by the time things started to expand and the record keepers had really said, at one point they said, we want you to start a school. And I said, kind of why? I was a little argumentative, and they said, because you're very galactic and we want to give you more galactic access keys that will connect to many, many, many of the star seeds on the planet. As more people, again, people hadn't even woken up to the fact that we're all star seeds. Back then, even 10, 15, 20 years ago, people were like, who's a star seed? What's that? People actually thought they were human. So, so again, lots of process of teaching over these last 20 years or so. And over the years, they've given me now 8 galactic access keys, or in the form of a sacred prayer that I teach in my 5-step wisdom prayer system. And so, all of this has been, like I say, this long 20-year process of writing books and, writing everything down and channeling more information and asking a ton of questions, and then doing readings for people, which is phenomenal because so much information actually comes from other people's records. Right? I can only be one soul. So different souls, different star seeds, different information, different stories, different traumas. And so much literally of what I've learned is, from reading 10,000 people over the last 25, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So it's been a beautiful and very profound process also of doing readings and learning through that process. Because the other thing that's interesting is you have your own library, David. So you have your own set of librarians. And when I would do a reading, if I did a reading for you, these beings of light are different than my record keepers, right? They speak differently. They have different information. They have, you've had different, again, lives here and other worlds. So it's amazing to be able to learn all of that by really connecting to clients, to
Mhm.
doing readings, and to students. It's phenomenal how much information there is, and of course, I've only hit the tip of the iceberg when I say 10,000 readings out of 7 billion people on the planet.
Right, right, right. Well, first of all, before we move forward, I don't know why I just feel compelled to say thank you for your faithfulness because, to be involved in something to help heal the planet and help other people for 30 years is just a huge investment in humanity. And there were so many opportunities along the way where you could have said, this is too much work. Why am I in this little bookstore? This is ridiculous. This is too, why aren't people signing up? Or this is a challenge, or, right. But you were faithful. And so thank you for your faithfulness
Thank you.
and in bringing this to our planet. It's just beautiful. Um, I am curious about going deeper with the Akashic Records. And first of all, before we talk about the 5-step system and the 8 galactic prayers, I'm very fascinated about that. Um, how let's see, what's the benefit? That's really what I want to ask is, what is the benefit of me understanding my past lives? What's the benefit of tapping into my Akashic records other than, oh, that's interesting, right? Oh, that's interesting that I had this past life. But like, what's the actual benefit to me?
The benefit is huge to each person because before you decided to come back into a body, your soul wrote a whole complex plan. Right? So you have a whole manual out there and it's stored in the Akashic records. So many of us have all of those questions like why am I here? What is my purpose? Why would I pick this family? Um, do I will I get married or have children? Am I supposed to? Am I not? Right? We often kind of feel like some of it is up to someone else almost, but it's really truly up to your soul who made this huge plan way before you embodied. And so to me, the huge benefit is that all of the information about why you came here is in that plan. So that plan contains information about the other souls that you wrote contracts with. So it can be about your family, it can be about your parents, it can be about the childhood trauma or ease and grace that you experienced. It can be about your purposes, and I always say that in plural because we come to do many things, right? If you just think back, of course, on your life, I know that you've had many iterations, as have I, right? I spent years in advertising. I spent years as literally a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids, and um, when my twins were born, my son was only 1.5. And so I literally had 3 toddlers, and I felt like I became a preschool teacher. I had 2 best friends who also had twins, and the 3 of us and our 7 little toddlers. So there's a whole piece of that energy, which is not just about having a kid or being a mom, but it's about creating a type and an energy of motherhood, right? And of joy in motherhood. And so these are parts of our purpose. Not only do I have contracts with those children to be their mother, to teach them, to raise them spiritually, different aspects like that, but also to help to change a pattern, these huge patterns that we have in the world. And so, again, we have many levels and layers. So, even in a contract to have a child, it may be to support that child, or it may be to finish a karmic pattern that you've had with that soul in another lifetime. So, not every soul contract is fun and easy. And even the karmic ones, which can be challenging and painful and even traumatizing in ways, when we work through that, when we can come to a place again, the benefit of the Akash is that it's source energy. When you learn to open your Akashic records and move into this vibration of pure love, we move into a space that opens your heart. You feel that unconditional love. We're able to hold a greater space of compassion, kindness, and caring for that child, that partner, that family member, that friend, because we're now raising our vibration literally by accessing the Akashic records. And so the benefits are, so numerous, not only raising your vibration, which is just life changing in one way, but understanding these soul contracts and understanding our karmic patterns. And not only do we get to understand them, because that's nice, but we can actually change, rewrite, heal, release emotional pain and trauma in this field of the quantum void.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, in the work that the record keepers have given me, they have really helped me to move even deeper into the quantum, into an unusual space, but a profound space of the void. And that is, to me, the space of creation, where everything and nothing and all infinite possibilities and all past, present, and future choices are literally held.
So I want to understand this. You're talking about a void. Every person has a void in their records, or there's only one void? Like, help me understand this.
Yeah, one void. one huge void, because it's source. That's what source truly is. The creative energy of source is the void. And so it's almost like, the way I imagine it is, and of course, just because we're in human bodies and we have these linear minds, I like to imagine things in more human terms to be able to explain that. So that's why the idea of the library works, though it's not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lovely way to kind of wrap your head around. You have infinite number of books and
Sure.
and a dozen beings who are in service just to you, so you can understand, access, and utilize that wisdom. Now you take those 7 billion libraries plus, because there's lots of libraries of people who are not embodied, and you put that in the quantum field.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now we're in this very infinite energetic field
Mm-hmm.
of source. And then within that field, I would, again, these are not places or spaces actually, right? They're energy. And so in that vibration, it's almost, I like to imagine it's going up in vibration. And so we can often access our records vibrationally and get information. And as we practice and go deeper, do more healing, clearing, and releasing of traumas, as we start to become a higher vibrational, higher conscious being,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then it becomes easier to move into a greater expanse of not only human realms, but galactic realms, and not even any of that, but into the void, the nothingness, where we can literally, to me, I use the word unwrite, and or rewrite contracts and some of the lives and the stories. So again, kind of, I'm a super visual person, actually. When I finally got a college degree, it was in commercial photography. So very visual, and kind of love these images that I get in the record. So one of the things, when I first started to kind of move more from the library expanded kind of past life back and forth, in a timeline way, when they first started to bring me into this even kind of higher, more expanded vibration of the void, I would literally be in nothingness. Mm-hmm. When I would say I was going to imagine if I was doing a reading for you and I'm opening your records and I'm using the access key and I'm just allowing myself to shift into this beautiful high vibration of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in nothing. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
darkness, blackness,
Mm-hmm.
whiteness. And then say you ask a question about what's blocking me from creating greater abundance in my life. And that question will almost bring, to me, it looks like spinning golden threads, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm floating in the middle of a ball of spinning light.
Mm-hmm.
And in the center, as I'm floating and I'm noticing what is blocking you, what lifetimes, where is the block? And then these little floating balls of spinning light pop out and become really more accessible. And so I can now, oh, I see that life where you were a priest and you took a vow of poverty. Oh, I see that life where you felt you were unworthy and, died in poverty. I see this, 10 more lives that are kind of showing up. And as they're moving into this, they're coming open, we're focusing on them. We're able to transmute them, to clear the emotional pain, to clear that unworthiness, to release the energy that has gotten stuck in that story in that lifetime. Again, no time, space, so they're always happening. So they're actually accessible and transmutable and upgradable. And then you kind of put them back in the void and on they go, but with a different energy and a different story.
Yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing. I am very curious about these 8 galactic prayers. And it sounds like, well, how long are they? Can you say one for us, or they might be top secret? I understand that. Uh, but like, I'm just so curious, like, like what are these? How do people use them? I know that you have entire courses and master, courses on this, but just like give us a taste of this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I often love to bring people into the Akashic Records with me, and this is the way I do it: is by using really one of the 8 galactic prayers. And so, how about I'll just do that, and I will bring you and me and all the listeners into the Akash with us, and maybe we'll even do a little group healing.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, I always say, if you can sit back and close your eyes, please feel free to do that. And we invite our greater aspect of our soul to come down more fully present into our physical body right here in this present moment. Allowing our soul to activate and integrate more fully into the physical form. Your soul wrote a contract with this body to live here. You have many purposes that are soul, physical body driven. And so as we anchor soul more fully present right here and now, we feel that energy lighting up in our physical form, the energy of the greater soul coming present, waking up the body more fully in this moment. And then take a nice, slow, expansive breath into your heart center, inviting your sacred heart to open just a little bit further. As we ask the divine lords of unconditional love to help us center fully in this moment as we create this sacred space. Please wrap us in your love and protection and allow us to travel to the highest realms of the Akasha available to us today. Please help us relay our multi-dimensional hearts open to divine love and release all resistance. Lords of the Akashic Record, please guide us to the deepest truth we can access now. Support us in healing and releasing that which no longer serves on our true path. We give great thanks for your divine love and support on this journey today. And just as you take a nice deep slow breath, imagine the beautiful silvery blue column of light from the quantum Akashic field of source coming down around you. I see it coming down literally around the whole planet because I know there are people all over the world listening. Just feel the energy of source, of your Akashic record keepers as we invite them to come in just a little bit closer. Each and every one of you have your own team, and just a few of them will show up to support you right now. And we ask the record keepers to give us each a sign that they're present with you now. And it may be a physical feeling or a warmth or a tingle or an image. And let's just take a moment. We'll ask our record keepers to help us to clear and release any blocks to abundance that we're able to release right now. So past life blocks. I always like to clear the vows of poverty because I would say that most of us light workers have taken spiritual vows of poverty as priests or nuns or monks or ascetics, and some religion or another where we may have said, I will not take money for my spiritual gifts. And so we want to clear, release those vows as they no longer serve you in this life, in this world, in this body. And we'll ask our record keepers to clear any energy from this life, whether it's childhood struggles, parents' beliefs, the ancestral energy. Even sometimes we may have lost a job or haven't been able to find one. Maybe we feel unworthy. Maybe we feel abandoned by source because we're struggling in our life. We're asking our record keepers to help us uplift that low vibrational energy from our physical body and our energy field and from our Akashic records. And we give great thanks to our record keepers, and we ask them to fill us up with the highest Akashic energy and light and wisdom we can now hold after the clearing we've just received. And so it is. Thus it be. And we close and lock the group records for now, and so it is. And whenever you feel ready, just coming back and opening your eyes. You may even want to make a note or two if you receive some information. Maybe they spoke to you or you saw some lifetimes or got some guidance. So it's helpful to jot it down because once we're out of the records, we sometimes forget. Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. I think I could have stayed there forever. I didn't want to come back. Yeah, let's go. Let's keep there. So
lovely.
So one of, as you were guiding us, were you expressing one of those 8 galactic prayers?
Yes. So the one I was speaking was actually a combination of a few of the galactic prayers. So there is a Arcturian, Pleiadian, Sirian, Angel, Orion, Lyran, Andromedan.
And how do I choose which prayer to articulate as I'm I know this is an entire program, so I'm asking level 2 questions, you know? So, but how do I choose which prayer to invoke?
Yeah, so in the first course, so I have the Akashic Self Mastery program broken into two courses. So in the very first course, you're going to learn the 5-step wisdom prayer system. I will teach you 3 of the most common galactic prayers. We play with them. We actually open them, we ask for information. I give you questions to ask the record keepers. You write down what you get, or see, feel, notice, and then we'll close that one and go on to prayer number 2. And so we literally go through a whole process that takes more than an hour usually,
Of course.
trying them on. And the thing that is so cool is that some people get a ton of information just in that first 2 hours of class. It's like, wow. And they remember lives, they see images, they get really phenomenal downloads. Many of us are more clairsentient, claircognizant. Some of the information is a little bit less obvious, right? It's not, clairvoyance is obviously more, since you're seeing a picture. Some people even get movies that can be very obvious. Not that many people have that developed clairvoyance, but a few do. Clairaudience is, again, often shows up as that quiet voice that sounds a little bit different from our own voice in the way we speak. And so, again, for most of us, there's a bit of a process of kind of differentiating. And that's why we do a whole process of opening the records. There are many 5-step wisdom prayer system, right? 5 steps. There's other prayers to help align. I teach tools to kind of turn your analyzer off, get you out of that egoic space.
No, that's the worst.
Right? Oh my gosh, that analyzer is crazy.
I love that word. I don't think I've heard that before. Your analyzer. Yeah. My analyzer is pretty strong.
Yes. Most humans have very strong analyzers. So literally I teach you how to turn your analyzer off, which is so quiet usually because that stops all that chatter.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nothing,
Nope.
when you finally get into meditation and it's quiet.
Yeah.
So I teach many processes. That first course alone is really 12 hours of teaching because it's a very deep work. It's,
Mhm.
I teach you 3 prayers and we practice with them and we do exercises, and I teach you how to get actually more fully embodied and get other people out of your energy field so
Mm.
you can hear your soul, you can hear your record keepers.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most of us are hearing other people chatting away in our heads and we're oblivious to it because it's been going on our whole life,
Right.
right?
That's that programming's echoing
Yeah,
for a whole lifetime.
a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
life, right?
And
So we go through all those
you're
processes,
are you talking, just because I want to get the language correct,
right?
you're talking about your Akashic Self Mastery program. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
So
there's
in
2 courses, 2
Yep,
levels?
two levels. So it's a deep, literally, in the whole 2-month program, there's 24 hours of teaching along with another 8+ hours of energy healing, group collective healing, answering of questions, sharing, all of those parts that are also very, very important when we're a student learning a new tool.
Mhm. Why do you do this? Why do you after 30 plus years, like, why are you still investing in people in this way?
I love it so much. It is my life. It is my purpose as a soul. And I know that I have come back as a soul many different times to help teach people. I know I've been in Oracle, I've been part of the ancient mystery schools, I've been in ancient Egypt, all of those lives where we're coming back again, not so much about the Akash, but in this life, that was the mission that I took on, was to truly bring this back to humanity at this time in history. like I made a contract with the Akashic record keepers to
Hmm.
come and to start a school.
Hmm.
And so it was literally, I'm going to say, impossible um, for me to say no.
Yeah. What are your I'm not sure if you're married or not, but what are your spouse and your kids? You've been doing this a long time. Like, what is their perception of this?
It's such an. I've been married 35 years. I've been married 35 years this New Year's, actually. Um, they're just so very clear that this is my purpose and that I hold a higher vibration for humanity, and they honor it and they appreciate it. And the twins have taken my workshops. They used to come to live expos when I'd have booths, and they would man the booth for me, and it was very funny. We went to Australia. My husband and I were in Australia, and I did a Mind, Spirit, Body expo in Melbourne, in Australia. and and he was manning the booth, and he had me so booked up with readings.
I love it. I
He
love
was
it.
so cute because I don't know. They I'm blessed to be very loved. And
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. And I find that curious because everybody's family is different, right? And some people kind of get it, and some people are fully in, and some people just kind of support from a distance, and some people think, oh my gosh, you're crazy. But yeah, yeah, it's so fun. My daughter, she's definitely on this journey with me. As I learn a lot of things, I share them, and yeah, it's beautiful. I'm curious about you've written 4 books. Your latest book is called Akasha: Spiritual Experiences of Accessing the Infinite Intelligence of Our Souls. And this was published with Sacred Stories. I love these different books are in their Common Sentience series. And so if you wouldn't mind telling us about how this book is different from, say, your average book on Akashic Records, what's unique about it?
so the Common Sentient series, I think there's at least 16 or 17 books in this spiritual book series now. Of course, mine is Akasha. It's about the Akashic Records. And the format of writing these books is I write part 1 and part 3. And part 2, we ask for people to send in their stories of their experience of accessing the Akashic Records. And so I have about 20 people who sent in, or 20 people whose stories were picked to go into the book, and their different experiences. And so I love it because it lets the reader see not just, from my point of view and from the record keepers, but other people's experiences and really how they've used the Akashic Records in their lives and how how that has benefited, these different people. It was one that pops into mind was a woman who had been trying to sell her house. She was in Ireland, and she kept trying to sell her house, and it would not sell. But there was really it was making the family ill, and the energy was very heavy and very dark, and they couldn't live there anymore. And she took my workshop. She learned to read the records for herself, and she did a ton of ancestral clearing on that land because it had been in her ancestry for hundreds of years, and did that, kind of really cleaned up that energy, and then she could sell it. And she was like so excited and so thrilled, right? Because in the regular world, there was no way. She changed realtors a couple times, and she couldn't figure out what was wrong until she accessed her records and realized it was really an ancestral trauma that was keeping that land stuck.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was,
That's amazing. And so
yeah.
part 1, my understanding is part 1 is really educating people on what the Akashic Records is. Part 2 is people's experience. And then part 3 is more practical. Is that right? Kind of more engaging, like how to engage with the records?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, in part 3, I give my 5-step wisdom prayer system. It's actually in that book, as well as I talk more about the galactic prayers and about kind of galactic starseed, worlds, and the support that the Akashic record keepers can give us in this life. And kind of, again, we talked a little about that in the beginning, but the benefit of understanding who you are as an infinite soul is, again, so transformational. I remember one of the first times I saw a past life of myself as a teacher in an ancient mystery school, and seeing, feeling, knowing, really energetically grokking that truth, it took all the doubt away. I felt that aspect of me step into this body. So often we can really start to embody the past life wisdom and gifts we've had. And that is a huge benefit, right? To be able to go into your own records, say, show me, 1 or 5 lifetimes where I've done what I want to do, but I'm doubting I can do it, right? Like when they first asked me to write a book, I'm like, I can't even spell. How am I good? I've got kids. What am I, So I literally would start to go into my records and say, show me past lives where I was an author, where I wrote with ease, where my book got published, right? So it's not just a one, kind of a one and done thing. It was like, show me these different lives, because writing with ease is a big deal. Being published is a big deal. You can write a book and never get it published, right? So all of these aspects I want, let me reclaim the energy and the gifts and that talent from that life and that life and that life and that life, and let me go into the future and access that where I've already done this.
Yes.
And there's actually a very fun story that I'd love to share, because that first book I wrote, they basically, I said, okay, how am I going to do this? And they told me 2 things, literally. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to have to do this. That second thing, which was ask a friend of yours to edit it for you. I thought, she's never going to do that. So I'm off the hook, right? They gave me 2 steps and I'm off the hook. So I called her up and I said, would you edit this book for me? And she was like, it's so weird. I was just thinking about working on a book project. I haven't done, I used to be an editor. And I'm like, I didn't really know this woman that well. I'm like, really? She's like, I haven't done a book project in like over a year. I would love to.
Wow.
Like, oh my gosh. And then I put the book, when I wrote, I put it into a book contest. I was doing a Get Your Book Done program, and I put it into a book contest because I had spent 15 years in advertising and I was very good with a deadline. So I said, I just need a deadline now. I'm going to join this program. I'm going to take that end date where I have to have the book proposal written and put in, and I'm going to make it happen. And that was my plan on how to get the book done, right? And going into the records and asking for lots of help. And so I put the book proposal along with 350 other people into the contest. I didn't care. I had no plan of winning anything. I didn't care about winning anything. I just wanted to get the book proposal done. And lo and behold, I won first prize, the first place, which was an agent, a book agent, who got me a book deal.
Amazing.
And, yeah. And I'm like, that was all the record keepers. That was
Amazing.
not me. That was all that kind of crazy, diligent work.
I love it.
I listened. I did what they said. It was my plan, but I was like, doing everything, right? We're embodied. They need us. We
Mm.
cannot create a new earth without ourselves being more fully grounded, embodied, and doing the light work we're here to do in bodies. Again,
Mhm.
so making those steps, joining a book program, getting an agent, getting that book out there in the world. That was my first book, The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records, which came out 10 years ago now.
Mhm. Your fourth book, as I mentioned, and we will link to it, we'll link to all your books, is Akasha Spiritual Experience of Accessing the Infinite Intelligence of Our Souls. You have your Akashic Self Mastery program that's going to be launching soon. If there's somebody who's just wanting to kind of get their feet wet and dive into this material, what would be a good first step for them?
You know, one of my favorite books is Your Soul Has a Plan. And the thing is that most of us don't realize that this is your plan.
Hmm.
You're not a victim. It's not random. You wrote it. And it's sometimes really hard, but transformational, again, very profound when we realize that we chose those whatever parents. We may have chosen an abusive family because we have a huge soul contract to end abuse on the planet. So we and another million other light workers have all stepped into abusive families to end abuse in their ancestral lineage, right? So when we can realize that you wrote that as a plan, when we can start to see and understand, again, just even by reading the book, and that book has a nice kind of workbook aspect to it. Some of the energetic healing prayers the record keepers have given me are in that, with some different processes to kind of start to understand and bring this information in for yourself,
Mhm.
even if you're not accessing the records yet, but you can be doing the energy healing. And so Your Soul Has a Plan, Awaken to Your Life Purpose Through the Akashic Records, to me is one of the best books to start with. And
Okay.
that and Akasha, both are published by Sacred Stories.
Okay.
And, so very different, but both great places to start. And of course, I have energy healing programs where you on my website where you can actually purchase a pre-recorded healing emotional pain and trauma program and get 10 hours of energetic healing, because it is recorded into that field and held for you always. And so those are great places to start, if you don't trust that maybe you can actually access your own records. But again, as the record keepers say, it is everyone's birthright, and some of us get it, in the first hour, and some of us take. That's why I made Akashic Self Mastery now a 2-month very deep dive into the Akash, with readings from some of my certified Akashic consultants, with 4 healing sessions, with 24 hours of teaching by me live,
Amazing. Amazing. When does the next program start?
It starts in March, the very beginning of March.
Okay, March 2026 is what we're talking about. Obviously, you could be watching this interview anytime. And so, what's the best place for people to go to connect with you on your website, social media? What's the best place?
Yeah. So, my website is akashicknowing.com, and all of my social media is under Akashic Knowing, one word. And so you could put in Akashic Knowing on Instagram or Facebook or any other, LinkedIn, any other social media and find me that way.
Wonderful. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your story, your wisdom, taking us into the Akashic Records. I just wanted to stay. That was so beautiful. And it's just so great to be with you. So thank you.
Thank you, David. It has been really a beautiful time for me. I am so grateful for your light and wisdom and all that you're sharing in the world. So thank you for letting me have this conversation with you. Thank you.